Hello there. I am so excited to announce a brand new program that I'm starting with Donna Nieper. That's right, the same Donna Nieper from LifeSpring Ministries that you've come to know and love through the Course of Heaven process with Dr. Ron Horner. Donna and I have just decided that enough is enough, and we are going to go river rafting down the river of life and talk about some really cool subjects that you don't usually get to talk about. And there's also a learning component to the program. So we can go deeper in learning how to interpret dreams and journal with God and some other really cool, fun things that will get your juices flowing and be refreshing for your summer. So check it out at BralynnNewby.com/river. And now enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Spirit-Centered Business Podcast, where we blend the spiritual with the practical for supernatural results. Now, here is your host, Bralynn Newby.
Welcome back to Spirit-Centered Business. I'm Bralynn, and I am here again with Brian Orm, and we've got some more of his amazing story and some of the cool stuff that he's doing right now. First of all, I just want to thank you again for sharing this broadcast out with your friends and subscribing to the YouTube channel and liking. We so appreciate your support. And so, Brian, now we just learned a lot about the story of how you got into what you're doing now. And I really want to talk about some stuff that just started, the Anomaly program, right? The mentorship or the school or however you want to frame that up. So tell us what people are learning over there so they can jump on board.
Yeah. So I have a business called Anomaly Ventures, and that really came out of a repeated word, prophetic word I would get is that I'm an anomaly. That I don't fit, not easily defined. And it's true. I mean, my wife, when she met my parents for the first time, she literally asked, "Were you adopted?" It's like, I'm so different than my family. Just like, what? And so that became the name of the business. And then I got probably, October of last year, I had a crazy download from God. And just like probably one of the most significant ones in my life. I just began to write it out, draw it out. And God says, I'm giving you a framework of new creation governance, how to govern as a new creation. And so I just, kind of as an individual began to press into it, process it, kind of build it out just for myself. And then God says, hey, you need to teach people about this. And so I shared it with a couple kind of spiritual fathers in my life, like, hey, I sent them the framework, a graphic, said, what do you think about this? I said, hey, we just feel a significant weight on this thing. And the more I prayed into it, I was like, I feel like this is one of the most significant things I've done, like one of the most important things I've done.
Wow.
And so it's 7 months, just started. There's people from all over the world that are part of it. And it's really building this different processes within this framework of, how do we go from the foundations of who we are in Christ to building what no eye has seen, and to begin to, terraform, the process of engineering, but those things from the unseen realm and what's everything in between, and kind of defining where we are as an individual, defining where we are as the body of Christ, and where God's taking us. We've got to address some of these processes in order to be prepared for what he wants us to build, what's on his heart and what's on his mind, and really about how do we administrate the unseen? How do we ground out something that's nebulous and hard to define, where it starts to become tangible and experiential for other people? That's kind of the idea.
That is so good. And you're so speaking my language. I love that. I love it. Love it. Love it. A lot of what I'm doing as well. So people can jump on board with that. It's 7 months. And they can go, I will definitely put the link to it in the show notes. So people go, make sure that you go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com to get the full show notes. Although the links should be in every place that you see the promotion for the show, the links should be in there. But if for some reason you don't see it, make sure you go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com and click on this show so that you have all of Brian's links, so that you can not miss out, because that sounds amazing.
It's gonna be fun.
Okay. So are you working with people who are already experiencing the supernatural in this, or are you training people to experience it? Who is the ideal person going through this?
It's a mix. I mean, part of the ideal person is they have felt like an anomaly themselves. You know, where it's like they've kind of deviated from the expected. They're not easily defined. And so there's that dynamic.
Well, I'm glad you called it anomaly instead of deviance.
Or deviated. I meant
deviated.
But then also a mix of, you know, some are experiencing things and some are wanting to experience things. It's really, I want to help provide language for people. Language is a frame. And, you know, people can begin to see things that they've been experiencing but didn't have the language for. Or they felt something, this nudge. I know God's propelling me into something. And we've all experienced this, right? Somebody says something, you're like, that's it. That's what I've been feeling. Or that's what I've been seeing, but I haven't been able to put words to it. And so I want to help in a big way provide some language for people.
Oh, that's so good. Are you getting into identity in this, or more about operating from identity? Okay. Okay.
Some foundational stuff. Got to get there to go where we need to go.
All right. Okay, you guys. Well, definitely jump in because it already started. So you don't want to miss too much. Can they go back and watch recordings and such?
Yeah, everything will be recorded. There's 2 sessions a month, a nighttime one and a morning one, because there's different time zones represented. So I'm trying to make sure at least you can make one live a month.
That's so good. I love that. And then there are recording other things that they can do on their own time.
Yeah, there's a private Facebook group. There'll be interaction and kind of some homework, not extensive homework, but you know.
But if you don't put it into action and you don't take it seriously, why bother, right? So homework is not a bad thing. That's the implementation that actually causes the transformation.
Indeed.
So it's all good.
Yeah, got to integrate it.
Yes, exactly. There's no magic pill. You can't just take a pill and boom, you're going to be different. You're going to operate. You're going to be able to terraform, and it doesn't work that way.
I hope we wish, but no.
Right, exactly. So good. Okay. And Arun is working with you on that project, or is that you?
No, this is just me.
That's just you. Okay, perfect.
Arun and I have a school that we're doing called Omnimetry.
That's cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was in a church last summer, and it was interesting. So in the middle of service, I see all these geometric shapes falling into the room. Wow. I was like, all right, Lord, what is this? And he goes, geometry is constrictive, is what he says to me. I said, okay. And so I'm remembering, you know, my school days of, you know, the meaning of geometry. It's earth measurement. It was the Greeks would measure land, and they would call it geometry. And so God says, and he drops this word, omnimetry. He goes, we need to move into omnimetry. I was like, omnimetry? And, you know, I knew enough about the Renaissance, and I was like, okay, you know, Renaissance is built on this idea that man is the measure of all things. So everything was built around this idea. We're the center of it all. And God was like, you need to build that I'm the center of all things. What would it look like if I'm the measure in business? I'm the measure in government. I'm the measure in technology, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so we came together. We'd done our Nura, which was our mystical school, for 3 years. And then we felt a shift, and both felt like God wanted us to do something different for this year. And so that's what we started in February. It's 10 months, so it'll go till October. So even if you get in now, you get access to all the replays and future lives, but a lot of fun content in there.
Wow. Okay. So let's just make the distinction between the two of them. In Anomaly, someone is learning all about spiritual engineering, governing from who they are, from that place of infinite possibility, is how I frame that up. And then in Omnimetry, they're specifically putting the measure of God into everything, right?
Yeah, so like 1 month, for example, we focus on the body, what would look like the measure of God in our body to be expressed. And kind of, you know, the body kind of gets a bad rap. A lot of times, you know, Gnosticism is still pretty prevalent in the church, which is, you know, one of the main tenets of Gnosticism is the devaluing of the body.
Yeah.
And the body is an amazing technology that
It really
God
is.
designed. And it's the house of the Godhead. You know, so it's how do we see the measure of God at a cellular level? And how does that impact things like longevity and the idea of immortality and all that stuff? So
I
that was
love that.
one, yeah. And then business is another one. We're looking at the measure of God in business, measure of God in our relationships, and making it really practical.
That is so good. I'm making myself a note because I might have to have conversations with you about some stuff. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So people need to jump into that one right away because that one started in February as well,
Yeah.
if they're interested. Okay. And then is there anything else that you want to tell people of how they can engage with you?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go to my website, there's all sorts of courses. I do coaching, you know, business coaching, crypto coaching. I do a lot of stuff in the crypto space. And we got a prophetic crypto community where we prophetically kind of gaze into what's going to do well, and that's been really successful.
Oh my
And then
gosh,
just
that is so
learning this
cool.
community to learn to kind of demystify that space. And so there's a whole bunch of different types of programs you can engage with.
Oh, very nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, crypto is relatively new to me too. And so potentially new to my audience, although some of them might be well into it. But we have had some conversations about crypto. So you prophetically looking into it, I haven't had that conversation yet. And you've been successful. So
Yeah,
tell us more about how that all works out.
Well, at the University of UC San Diego, when my wife and I were there, we used to do these things called eternal intelligence briefings. And we would kind of take a realm like government business in our region, and we get into small groups and we begin to pray for any divine data. And then we'd look for patterns in each small group, and then all the groups would come together with their repeated patterns. And then we'd look for the overarching pattern. And so then when I got into crypto, 2018, God said to learn about Bitcoin. So I'm a researcher kind of guy. So I'd spent about 100 hours researching Bitcoin.
Wow.
And I was like, why was I not in this before, number one? And so I started to get into it. And then God says, hey, teach people about crypto. And I was kind of hesitant, to be honest, because I was like, I don't know, this is such a different lane than what I've been doing, you know? And God says, you need to do this. And so I threw up a thing like, hey, I'm doing this 10-day thing for 10 people. I didn't know if anyone was going to sign up. It was within 2 hours sold out. And so I opened up a second one before the first one and a third one before the first one. They were all sold out. And it became really apparent. People were hungry to understand this space, but they didn't know who to trust.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of built on the research that I'd done and started helping people navigate. And then God says, hey, you remember what you did on the university, the intelligence briefings? He goes, why don't you do that with crypto? And so I started a crypto group, and we've got about 150 people now from all over. And we get together And we had it last night. We do once a month. And so we prophetically pray, God, what's one coin that's going to do well in the next 30 days? And, or, you know, when's the market going to dip? When's a good day to get in? And it's been like 90% correct. It's pretty crazy. Like,
yay, God.
that's super cool. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh,
And then we
my
just
God.
learn about the space. There's a wide spectrum. Some people are brand new. Some people are Jedis. They've been in it for years, and everything in between. So it's not just a space to kind of prophetically pray, but it's to learn about crypto as it's evolving and changing rapidly, how to get positioned and all that stuff.
Do you do NFTs as well?
Yeah. So I did 2 workshops, crypto workshops. One is called Crypto Onboarding. That's kind of the basics, foundation. And I did one called Cryptocurrents. I get into metaverse, NFTs, all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting time that we live in, isn't it, Brian? Just unbelievable. Which actually I want to ask you then, because you had been receiving downloads and you could see into the spirit years and years ago, have you seen a shift since the revelation has been opened up to those of us who didn't see that years ago and now we do? You know, have you seen a shift?
Just like in the body of Christ, or
Yeah, or in general in the spirit realm, as far as like more downloads or more people?
yeah, I think there's a much bigger awakening in the church. You know, the 90s, the prophetic kind of became a big emphasis of hearing God. I think the emphasis now is, or at least should be now, is discernment, understanding. You know, those 2 terms are kind of similar. Is, you know, by wisdom a house is built, by understanding it's established. And so, like sons of Issachar, right? If we can understand, then we'll understand the times, plural.
Right.
And so I think that's what God's pulling us into. The prophetic, hearing God, was to prepare us to be able to understand. But I'm seeing a lot of encouragement in the body of Christ. I'm seeing in the world a lot of awareness as well. Just there's a heightened awareness of stuff happening, even just at a cosmic level. Things are shifting and transitioning, and that's helping to bring a greater level of awareness to humanity.
Yeah, so good. So specifically in business, have you seen more people really pressing into the spirit realm for business ideas or success or, you know, movement of some sort?
I mean, I'm reminded of a really good friend. I'm not going to share his name because it's sensitive info, but you know, he had this crazy encounter recently, and he has this thing where wisdom will appear, and when wisdom appears, like his right ear gets really hot. And so he was checking into a hotel. It's pretty late, and he hears this voice say, "Go to the bar." So he goes to this bar. He's hanging out, talking to this guy. Starts getting these downloads, but he's framing it in language this guy's going to understand. He's not like, "Hey man, I just had this divine download from the heavenly realms." He's just like, "Hey," and this guy says, "Do you know who I am?" And he's like, "No." So this guy ends up being a billionaire, and he was giving him solutions. Like, this was wisdom. Wisdom's all about solutions.
Wow.
And this guy's wife walks up. Same thing. He starts getting downloads. The lady goes, "Do you know who I am?" And he says, "No." She goes, "I'm in the executive leadership of this global brand. It's worth $60 billion. And she says to him, "You need to teach all of our executive team what you're talking about. They're not believers at all." And so he recently did this. He taught this stuff. He's framing it again in language that they're going to understand, but it's all kingdom. And he made, in one contract with this company, more than all of last year.
Wow.
And it's just wisdom. So to me, it's like wisdom is crying in the streets, right? Aloud, like in the marketplace, at the places of commerce and transaction, for believers to be awakened so that we can build what's on his heart and what's on his mind. And so I'm excited. I'm more hopeful probably than ever. I'm a hopeful guy anyways, but I'm super hopeful right now.
Very cool. So I would like to just get your take on then the people who have been pressing into wisdom and pressing in for, prudence for witty inventions and just pressing in to the spirit realm and to kingdom for their business, and they're not really seeing results. What would you say to them?
Don't be so serious. There's something interesting about wisdom in the Proverbs. It's Proverbs 8 where it describes, I took delight in the habitable parts of the earth, and she rejoiced before the Father, and she rejoiced in the habitable part of the earth. That word rejoice means to play with. There's a playfulness to wisdom, and it's that childlike faith. It's, to me, one of the keys of the heavenly realms opening up is being like a child. So even like a vision board, I think most of your audience is going to understand what a vision board is. And but some people get so serious about their vision board, and it's like intense, and it's like, why don't you get construction paper out, big glue sticks, get some crayons out, some Play-Doh, and invite wisdom to play with you in the vision. And I did this in a session a couple years back, and it was kind of a workshop environment. So it's about 50 people. And, everyone has this expectation of this workshop. And so I had in the tables Play-Doh, Hot Wheels cars, crayons. And you can see people like, what's going on? Like, what is this? And so I had people kind of do these exercises, like take your non-dominant hand and begin to write with a crayon. It's like reconnect with little you, the one that had no limitations and dreamed about anything as possible. And I think there's something about coming back to that place that begins to open some stuff up.
That is so good. Very good. And what would you say to the people who don't think they're hearing or seeing?
I think what you touched on earlier, like we're all processing things. And, to me, God, this is just for me personally, may not apply to everyone else, but God's kind of shifted the way he's talking to me in this season. It's different. Like it's not what it was before. And at first it was like super frustrating because I was like, Lord, why are you not speaking? He's like, well, I am. It's just different. And I think sometimes we have to assess the season that we're in. Transition is natural, but it feels unnatural. And it feels crazy. There's so much transition happening, right? In the world and the church and everything in between. And so even for us as an individual, it's kind of like, all right, Lord, is there a different way you're speaking to me that I need to be aware of? And, maybe it's not the thunder or even the still voice that it was before. It's now I'm speaking to you numerically. I'm speaking to you through creation. Like it's a shift in our perspective. It's not that he's not speaking, just might be a different language.
That is so good. And I'm sure that will help a lot of people. So thank you. Thank you for that insight. Yeah, that's really good. I know that you work with a lot of people that may have those kind of issues or they're running along, but then they come to something that they just feel like they're blocked or they can't pass, yet they feel called to it, and yet it keeps bugging them, but they can't pass. So I'm sure that you work with a lot of people who are, if everybody's on their game, they're not going to seek a coach, right?
Indeed.
So we get a lot of people. The reason that they come to a business coach is to move their business forward because it's not. So,
and I think when it comes to seeing too, like you mentioned, like I'm not seeing that to me is connected to hope. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, and the eyes of our heart are how we actually see. And so hope is to me, hope is the ability to see in the heavenly realms. And so if I have a lack of hope or awareness of hope, we don't have a lack of hope because Jesus is hope. It's just the awareness could be lacking. That's going to affect my ability to see. And so it's kind of good to assess that, like, hey, my hope deferred. If I kind of entered into, a relationship with disappointment and built a connection there rather than with the heart and mind of God.
That's so good. That's really good. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So are there any other issues that seem to be cropping up as a kind of a pattern? You said that you look at, divine data earlier. So have you noticed any other patterns of when people come to you for things?
Yeah, I think the understanding piece is one of the big patterns. It's like, I think people understand wisdom in the sense of the role of wisdom. I think understanding, it's like, when we start unpacking stuff, I'm like, so it sounds like you don't understand like what you're supposed to do, or you don't
Mhm.
understand what it's supposed to look like. To me, wisdom is, it makes it viable. What you're building, your business becomes viable when there's wisdom.
Mhm.
With understanding becomes sustainable. And so the
So good.
sustainability piece, and then there's knowledge, right, which fills the house with treasure, and that becomes profitable. And so we need wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. We need all three, of course, but
Mhm.
I think understanding is probably one of the big pieces that begins to lack, which again is connected to discernment. You know, Discerning is the in between. Like, I know what's in the light and what's not in the light. I know what's true and what's not true. And when there's a lack of that, everything's gray. It's like, I don't know, it's all the same color. It's like, I'm not sure which is which. And so understanding helps us distinguish. I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to be doing that. This is not the right deal. This is the right deal. And, because I think one of the questions I get, hey, do you think I should do this? I'm like, I'm not the one who should be telling you whether or not you should be doing this.
Right, right.
Right? You should understand what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good. Wow, this has been so good. Is there anything else that you want to share with any of your programs that are going on, the mentorship, the products and the courses that people can take from your website, or just what you have, walking in your own life? Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I think just a request for prayer, just for the retreat business for Rune and I. We're really praying this will come through. The grant is what will enable us to do this. And we've just been dreaming about this and so excited. And then just also coupled with prayer of the anime manga novel that's coming out, and really praying that this will evolve into a series or a movie in a
Mhm.
really dark entertainment industry. Anime, there's not a lot of light in that space. And so it could make a huge impact. Anime is massive worldwide. And so
Mhm.
to bring some kingdom in there would be amazing.
That's true. And maybe we need to not just ask for prayer for that, but let's just open that up just a little bit. We have just a few more minutes. What have you discovered about anime and that whole space that really made you say, "Oh no, we've got to do something"?
I personally like anime. I like the artistic expression of it. There's a lot of depth to anime too, in a lot of the stories. And so I had this prophetic word years ago from this guy, Jason Ma. I actually had a dream about him. I didn't know who he was. I saw his name, which is his name, Jason, is spelled differently, Jaeson.
Oh.
So in the dream, I was like, oh, that's an interesting spelling. So we end up meeting. A year later, we're at a conference together in Vegas. This is 2009. And he prophesies over me. And the interesting thing is, at the time, he wasn't doing this, but he's now completely involved in the entertainment industry. And he's prophesied, you're going to produce a movie and it's going to be a blockbuster. And I was like, it was so far out in left field. I was like, okay. I didn't really know what to do with this. I just put it on a shelf. And then a year later, I'm with a new friend and we're at dinner and he looks at me and goes, I think you're going to produce a movie.
Oh.
I was like, what? So I just said, all right, Lord. So I started dreaming about what would I do. And I immediately was like, I would do anime. because it's such a massive medium of communication. There's so little of the kingdom in there. And I started forming what it would be. And then 2020, I'm in Texas at a conference, and a lady comes up to me and says, tell me about your story. So I'm telling her bits and pieces. And she goes, we're going to make a movie about your life. Because I've made a movie before, and immediately I'm reminded of all this stuff. I said, it's going to be anime. And so that evolved into getting this manga novel that's almost done. That's kind of step one. So
that is interesting. And because I'm not in that world, what does manga mean?
It's a style of these anime novels. So it's the writing style is a lot of action, a lot of intense fight scenes, and then there's a lot of artwork in the book as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And are you doing it yourself?
Yeah, so I have a friend that wrote it, but I just told him what to write. So I basically wrote out all the stories of my life, and then he kind of took that into making it into a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got a friend doing the artwork for the characters.
Oh, nice. Very cool. All right. So talking to the audience now, you heard it. Okay. Prayers for this, because this would be amazingly cool. And, just like, what was his name? Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, and then everybody started breaking it. Well, as soon as we can get kingdom into anime, then everybody will be doing it, right?
That'd be amazing.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, pray for the retreat, you guys. And I have prayer warriors that watch the show. So
yeah, come on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll definitely bring it to my team as well.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Of course. This has been so good. I mean, we covered so many bases. I don't know how I have an assistant who does the show notes, and she's like, well, what do we call it? Do we call it, this or this? And we talked about crypto, and we talked about, my goodness.
The Kaleidoscope.
There you go. The Kaleidoscope episode with Brian Orm. Love it. Oh, this has been really, really good. And you touched on so many things, and I would love to have more conversations with you to go deeper into these. And I'll tell you outside of the show what other projects I'm working on that might be of interest to you. Yeah. But this has been good. Any last gold nuggets or thoughts or anything?
I would just discover what's trending in heaven. There's a lot of stuff trending in the world right now that can cause anxiety, stress, hope deferred, disappointment. And we need to discover what's trending in heaven, because there's always something trending, and that is superior to anything trending here.
Oh, so good. Love it. That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, bless you guys.
Yeah, blessings, everyone. Until next time, stay spirit-centered. Peace out.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Centered Business with Bralynn Newby. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. The next stage of doing business by being spirit-centered is coming together in collaboration, working with spiritual principles and knowing our destiny. Join our tribe at spiritcenteredbusiness.com, and we'll catch you on the next broadcast. Peace out.